Alrighty, boys and girls, welcome to integer operations. This is something that we need to review and become a master of because the material we have coming up, if you don't remember when you're supposed to do positives and negatives, everything's going to be wrong. So let's look at the first. Adding and subtracting integers. If they are same signs, you add and keep. Positive plus a positive answer. 3 plus 7, 10. Obvious. A negative plus a negative is going to be a negative answer. Negative 3 plus a negative 7, negative 10. That one we got. Now here's where it gets weird. It's because sometimes you see Mr. Squinty here, and you're like, positive minus a negative, uh-oh. And you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. This is really a negative, but it's showing it will be a positive. Because if you subtract a negative, that is adding. So be careful on that one. I think that's where some of us can get tripped up. Subtracting a negative is really addition. Because you're like, I'm going to do opposite of subtracting, and that would be adding. All other adding and subtracting is a fight. At this point, they're just not getting along. Positive, positive, great, we get along. Negative, negative, oh yeah, we're buddies, let's put more negatives together. Not anymore. This is when the fight starts. You have to remember that different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger number, then you'll be exact. So here's some examples. If you have a negative 3 and a positive 7, then they're fighting. Positive 7 is bigger, so positive 7 is going to win. So I got a positive 4. And again, remember, that is the same as saying a negative 3 minus a negative 7, because minusing a negative is adding, and then you get a 4. Our next example, if you have a 3 and you're adding a negative, negative 7 is going to win here because there's more negative 7 than there is of 3, so I'm going to result in a negative answer. It's all a fight. Who's going to win this battle? So this is why I'm like, okay, they're different signs, subtract. Lastly, if you have a 3 minus 7, please be aware that subtracting is the same as we just did. Subtracting 7 is like you are adding a negative number. So if this was 10 minus 7, you would expect to get 3. But because I've got a positive 3 and a negative 7, the negative 7 is going to be bigger, so I'm going to end up with a negative answer. So subtracting is the same as adding a negative. Unless, of course, you were subtracting a negative number, then it would just straight up be adding. That's it for adding and subtracting. Keep those on that side of your brain. Take whatever notes on this you need to remember, because open note test, yay. Here is, I didn't want that little thing to appear yet. Doesn't work for you. I guess it would work for you. Okay, so multiplying and dividing of integers. If you have an even number of positive signs, you will have a positive answer. So a positive times a positive, a positive. 7 times a 3. Oh, I said that backwards. 3 times 7. 0, negative signs, is even. So you're going to have a positive answer because that's an even number of negative signs. Then if you have a negative times a negative, you're going to get a positive because that's 2 negative signs. So negative plus, that should say times. I wonder if I should take the time to fix that. Yeah, I'm totally going to fix that right now. Copy, paste. I don't see anywhere else that happening. Save. Open that bad boy up and pretend like that was part of the show. There we go. Next, if you have an odd number of signs, you will have a negative answer. Oh, I forgot to point out the little triangle guy over here. Okay, so a negative times a negative equaling a positive. So I had these two guys, negative, negative, positive is what's left. So you cover up what you have, and you're left with your answer. This is our multiplying and dividing integers triangle. Works for odds as well. If I have an odd number of negative signs, we will have a negative answer. So if I have a positive times a negative, negative answer. 3 times negative 7, That's one negative sign. 1 is odd, so I'm going to have a negative 21. Or think of it like positive 3, negative 7. I'm going to cover up the positive 3 and the negative 7, and oh look, I'm left with a negative. That's how that triangle guy works. A negative and a positive. This is quite literally what we just said, but put the negative on the 3 instead. You've got the 3 is negative, the 7 is positive. That's still just one negative sign, which is odd, so you have a negative answer. So let's pretend we covered up these two guys. We covered up the negative for the 3 and the positive for the 7, and oh look what's left, a negative answer. Now, this can work for no matter how many negatives you have. If I have a negative times a negative times a negative, that's 3 negative signs. That's an odd number. That's going to be an odd answer. If I had a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative with 4 negative signs, positive answer, so on and so forth. No matter how many negative signs I have, if it's an even number of negative signs, positive answer. Odd number of negative signs, negative answer. In summary, here's the things that you need to make sure you take away from this video. Adding and subtracting integers. Same signs keep and add, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the bigger number, then you'll be exact. Remembering that trick that if you're subtracting a negative, that is going to be positive. And if you're subtracting in general, that's the same as adding a negative. Multiplying. You can use that multiplying and dividing integers triangle. If you have an even number of negative signs, so if I cover up these two negative signs, I had two negatives being multiplied or divided, and then I have a positive answer. An odd number of negative signs, like this guy and this guy, would leave me with a negative answer. Feel like I just said something that was important and then it left me. Negative and a negative equals a positive. Even number. I think we're good. Alright guys, thank you so much. Bye-bye.